What's up, guys? I'm BTC. The Lifeweaver character has been out for a few days, and he's already getting a rework because he is terrible. Honestly, I don't know how this character got past testing, because this character is awful to play. It is not fun to play in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because the control scheme is just garbage. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And the character is just weak and pathetic. There are some problems with the character. We'll get to it in a minute here. I also want to briefly talk about Brigitte a little bit later on as well. But essentially, the character is not very good to play. And the first thing, and I'm sure everybody has already noticed this, is the control scheme, which is just awful. I can't tell you how many times I have accidentally tried to attack a teammate and then try to heal an enemy because, let's face it, it is not the most obvious thing when you switch these. Because the hand, sure, you can see the little spikes and stuff, and you can see the flower when you're looking directly at it, but that's not what you're focused on during normal gameplay, right? Your eyes are focused on the center of the screen. You're looking at the enemies. You're looking at your crosshair. That's what you're focused on. So it's really just your peripheral vision that's seeing the arm of the character. So you might not really notice in the heat of battle which one you have out, and that's why you end up trying to heal your enemies and attack your teammates. It's not like the other characters, because there's really only other two. You have Torbjorn, who has the hammer, which is really obvious, and you don't even need to use it, because most of the time you're just better off dropping down a new turret anyways. The only time you're going to use the hammer is when you're trolling or memeing or something like that. And then Mercy, who has weapons that are so completely different from each other, there's no way you could possibly mess it up. So you know exactly what you have equipped at all times. But again, with Lifeweaver, that's not the case. Because, yeah, I mean, from just your peripheral vision, you might not quickly know. Now, yeah, sometimes the flower does kind of stick out and stuff, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not as distinguishable from each other as it should be. Now, there are a couple of possibilities why they might have done this. I think, honestly, they just did it because they thought it looked cool. I thought that maybe because other characters have the ability to switch weapons, that they thought it was cool. Maybe they would just add another one that could do it. Honestly, I think they should get rid of the whole weapon switching thing and find a different solution for these two characters, but that's another topic. Regardless, they probably did it because they thought it was just cool looking. However, there is the slight possibility that they could have done it initially for balance reasons, because they didn't want you to be able to heal and to do damage at the same time, or almost at the same time, right? They wanted to have that maybe 1.5 second transition between the two. But then again, look at some of the other characters, right? You've got Baptiste, who can do both, right? You've got Moira, who can do both. So maybe it was a balance issue. I don't think it was. Regardless, Blizzard has come out, and the Overwatch devs have talked about it. They said that the team is looking into an alternative control method for Lifeweaver's dash and weapon swap in order to make the transition from healing to damage smoother. Additional details and blah, blah, blah coming soon. So what I think is probably going to happen, and most people have already suggested this as well, pretty much everyone suggested the same thing, is that you have the left click, which does the healing, you have right click, which does the damage, and then you just have the dash on the jump thing, like what Hanzo does. I can't even tell you how many times I've double jumped with this character, trying to do the dash like Hanzo, and it not working. I almost completely forget that he has the dash half the time, because I don't even think about it, and I try to dash with the double jump, and it doesn't work. But anyways, we don't know what they're gonna do. I hope they get rid of the weapon swapping altogether. I have a feeling that it's not going to be as good as it should. I have a feeling that they're probably still going to keep the weapon swap for some stupid reason, and then they're going to do something else that might be marginally better than what we have, but I still think it's not going to be as good as if they just switched it to, you know, left and right click and that sort of thing. Now let's talk about the abilities and the healing, which are pathetic and weak. I realize that this character is mostly for utility. You have a whole bunch of different stuff that allows you to keep your teammates alive and that sort of thing. But they also have very long cooldowns, which means that you can't use them all the time. Like, mostly the thing that you're going to be doing is this. You're going to be charging and trying to heal your teammates. So you have an off healer who's probably going to spend most of his time trying to heal the teammates with this awful, pathetic heal that he has. First of all, why is there a movement penalty on this? That makes no sense at all. It is incredibly stupid. It's not like with Ana, who can zoom in and get a hit scan with her chain. Like, you don't get any extra benefit from using it, right? Like, unlike Ana, who can zoom in. So this is just a movement penalty, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. That needs to be removed. Also, then you have the amount of time it takes to charge this. And look at how long it takes to charge this. Plus you have the travel time. Plus you have the fact that it can be blocked by enemies or by walls or any sort of other thing. If the teammate happens to move a little bit off to the left and suddenly your healing goes into the wall and it doesn't work anymore, right? There are so many detriments to healing with this character. It's just, like, why bother? Dude, just switch and just do DPS the whole time, right? Like, just maybe you can do this every now and again and just try to do DPS, because at this point, healing with this character just doesn't seem worth it. So there are a whole bunch of changes that they need to make with that, and I think the first one is to just get rid of the stupid movement penalty. Maybe add a little bit more. Again, I think that... Here's the thing. When they first talked about this character being like a druid from World of Warcraft, I thought that it was going to be a heal over time. But there isn't. I mean, yes, you can see that it seems like it's healing over time and very quickly, but that wasn't what I was thinking of. I was thinking of something more like what Zenyatta has, but... maybe it's more of an applied thing, right? Like, you cast it on them, and then it heals for, you know, 50 over a certain amount of time or something. And you, like, just tap it here, tap it here, tap it here, tap it here. That sort of thing, right? And you would basically put different pots, different heal over times on your teammates. And I thought that's what they were going to do. Instead, we got this awful stuff right here. And, like, I don't know. Maybe they should just change the way that the healing works altogether. So that way you can keep him as an off healer with this kind of heal over time thing, but not have it be stupid and frustrating to use. As for his damage, I think it's fine. It does okay amounts, but it needs to be reloaded quite often, so that's a nice little balance to it. It also has quite a significant spread at longer ranges, so it's not like you can really snipe with it or anything. The dash is fine, just move it to double jump and it will just be good as is. But then we have the other abilities. Now, the life grab, or whatever it's called, this is okay as an ability. And I realize that a lot of people were concerned about people misusing it because of, you know, being able to grief and drop people off the edge of the map and stuff. But I don't think that's really an issue. Yeah, it's going to happen. But I think the much, much, much bigger problem that I've seen, at least, from my gameplay with this, is that people using it when they're trying to be helpful, and it's just not a good time to use it. Now, think about this for a second. How many times does Kiriko misuse the Suzu? How often does your teammate misuse that? Even at the higher ranks, right? Masters, GM, whatever. How many times do they misuse that ability? Because even the best players in the world are going to have these abilities get used, like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have used that right then. I should have saved it or something like that. But the thing is with these abilities, it is simply a loss of value. That is the detriment to it. You don't have the benefit from that ability anymore. And the same thing goes with, like, Ana and the Bionade and some of the other stuff, right? Like, oh man, you misused it. It's not a big deal. With Lifeweaver, however, misusing his grab is not just a lack of benefit. It is an actual detriment to your teammates. So I don't think it's necessarily an issue of your teammates misusing it on purpose. I think it's more of an issue that, oh yeah, the support used it at the wrong time, and maybe they thought they were trying to save me and they were trying to be beneficial. They were actually trying to help, but I was setting up, you know, something for my enemy, or I was in a position where I wanted to be there, or whatever it happens to be, right? So there are a lot of situations where the Weaver is going to use this ability, and it's going to be an actual objective detriment to your teammates. It's not like the other abilities that just get misused and then you have a lack of benefit. This is actually a genuine detriment to your team. And the same thing goes with a bunch of stuff that happens with the platform as well. There are a lot of situations where it's going to be an actual objective detriment to your team, even though you were trying to be beneficial. So I think that's a big difference with this character as opposed to a lot of the other ones. And let's talk about this platform, because for those that have been around on my channel for a while, you might remember I had a hero concept named Jules with a similar ability, but I made sure to address a lot of the issues with this particular ability. First of all, it didn't move up from the ground, so only Jules could use it. She would jump into the air using a special high jump ability, and then she could essentially create her own high ground platforms wherever she wanted to. And it did have 400 hit points, just like with Lifeweavers, but the difference was that only really she could use it, and also it had a shorter duration, only 6 seconds instead of 10 seconds or whatever Lifeweaver has. And then the cooldown started, I believe it was after the ability was gone. So you would have a pretty significant amount of downtime, so an 8-second cooldown and that and what have you. So there was a lot of trade-off with this ability. I realized that it could be used as a very powerful kind of barrier that you would be able to use in the air, and there needed to be some trade-offs for this, but for whatever reason, Blizzard didn't feel the need to actually address any of these concerns. So all of the things that I tried to resolve and tried to make sure would work, they just seem to ignore it, and they're just like, yeah, it'll be fine. So now what we're left with here is Lifeweaver, who is a support character, who's able to create these 400 hit point barriers that give him high ground, and they are effectively on cooldown, right? As soon as the platform goes away, you fall to the ground, there's maybe like 1 second extra left on the cooldown, and then you can immediately throw another one, and you have another 400 hit point barrier. So Lifeweaver has a perpetual 400 hit point barrier with this ability, and it's ridiculous. It's way too strong. If there was anything that should be nerfed on Lifeweaver, it would be this particular ability. I would make the changes that I had with Jules, which is I would give it a shorter duration, a little bit longer of a cooldown, and make it so that there needs to be some kind of trade-offs. You can't just have this barrier that provides 400 hit points worth of protection that is constantly available. It doesn't work. It's way too strong. Now, as far as the ultimate goes, well, the ultimate is, it has its uses, I suppose, but it feels very, very lackluster. I mean, yeah, it just, the healing it provides just doesn't feel like it's enough, right? I know it probably can't be at the same level of, Zenyatta Transcendence or something like that, but at the same time, I don't know, it feels really, really weak. It feels so underwhelming to use that. And I know that, a Roadhog can destroy it with his ultimate. I don't care about that. If you have one ultimate that's able to destroy another ultimate, that seems a fair trade-off to me, right? Because if he's using it to destroy, if Roadhog uses his ultimate specifically to destroy Lifeweaver's ultimate, that seems like a fair trade to me, right? A 1-to-1. So people that are complaining about that are idiots, and they don't know what they're talking about. One final thing about Lifeweaver is the voice lines, which to me, they just sound awful. The character doesn't sound realistic or believable at all. It's quite clear that the voice actor is not putting any actual effort into it. He's just reading the lines off of a script, and that's about it. And what's funny about this is that there are actual robot characters in the game that have more lifelike voice lines that sound more lifelike than this guy does. And this guy is supposed to be human. I think that's a little bit ironic and also kind of sad that the voice lines for the character are terrible. But let's talk about the other character that I wanted to mention, which is Brigitte. She has an ultimate, which is not really all that good. I mean, it's not complete, total garbage, but at the same time, it's not very good either. When they said they were going to give her a new ultimate, a reworked ultimate, I was expecting something completely different and something that would be actually useful. And I was expecting a proper ultimate, but the thing that she has now, is not a proper ultimate. Instead, it's just two different half-assed lazy ultimates that have been slapped together. And it doesn't do any one thing really well. Instead, it does a couple of things just very mediocre, and that's about it. And there really aren't any other ultimates that function that way. Like, an ultimate is supposed to be impressive. It's supposed to do something really, really awesome and something very effective. But again, that's not what Brigitte's ultimate does. It just kind of it's just kind of there. And yeah, you can stun, but the most you're gonna stun with someone is maybe 1 or 2 enemies. So you have it, you activate it. It does have a little bit bigger of an area, so you can stun more than one. But again, they have to be really close in order for that stun to take effect. And you also need to be really close to the enemy. The problem, though, is that Brigitte doesn't have remotely the survivability that she used to have. She cannot get up front and brawl with the enemy like she used to. Even with your ultimate activated, you are still going to get torn apart. And if your shield gets wrecked, well, there goes your stun. You can't hit them anymore with it. So it's just... it's a very, very lackluster ultimate. It's very mediocre in what it does, and it still is probably one of... if, well, I don't know, maybe the Lifeweaver ultimate might be the worst one now, but regardless, it's a very bad ultimate. It's a terrible support ultimate, especially when compared to the others. So, yeah, I don't know. They need to change this. This ultimate is just dumb. It doesn't work nearly as well as it should, and yeah, maybe it might be annoying to get stunned with it, but, I mean, for the most part, you're going to be better off using almost any other ultimate from a support character, so... yeah, this was very, very disappointing on the new Brigitte ult. They need to definitely go and change it to something else, and make it so that it actually does one thing really well instead of a bunch of stuff just kind of whatever. Hopefully we get some better stuff for Weaver and for Brigitte. What do you guys think about these? Let me know down below.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive.